right, so we are going to talk about special education and its history. So if we get really far back in the history, the oldest records of people being disabled or differently abled call for their deaths quite often. In the Bible, in the teachings of Plato, in the teachings of Aristotle, it would be even in Hitler, there was a lot of eugenics associated with it where people just wanted to leave those babies out to die. A little bit after that, I think it was the 1700s, people started to have different ideas, and asylums became a more common thing. So those people were put into asylums. They were kept away from the general population.
They weren't killed, they were like cared for, kind of.
They weren't killed, but it was more or less a death sentence anyways, because they were there until they died. They obviously weren't being fed great food.
No, it wasn't a good
taken out on awesome adventures. They were just kind of like left in their room with a bed and like, here's some oatmeal, like eat it.
It was kind of prison-like, correct?
Yeah, they weren't allowed to leave because they were considered.
Kind of why they don't exist anymore.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
Cruel and unusual punishment is what the Supreme Court ruled it as.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So, in the early 1900s, people started kind of changing their ideas and wanted to see more effort into kind of we take care of our own and we all need to be taking care of each other, and that kind of got pushed further in the 60s in the civil rights movement. So that's when education for all, and I believe it was free education for all, including different races, religions, genders, abilities. That was a really big deal, and it was really pushed for, and it passed. So that leads us to where we are today, where you can put your kid in a public school and they can get a special education for free. So as of right now, Tyler can talk more about this, but there's a big push for integration into the general education classes.
I look at even our students who, when they hang together at lunch, they want to be with themselves.
Right.
They want to be with their group. It's a social group, and it's all like-minded, and
It's
they
their
like
niche.
it. We shouldn't force them into something they're not.
Situations they don't want to be in.
No. And
Well, just like us as human beings, sometimes we'll stay home instead of going out with friends because we don't want to go out. We should give them the same opportunities instead of forcing them to.
we give them I think you give them the invitation, and I always say it's always better to be invited and say no than it is to not be invited at all.
Right.
So invite and
Don't force. And integration is really important, and we do that. So like the ALC, I think maybe they have one class in the ALC classroom. The rest of them are integrated into general ed classes. Even our classroom, we have a couple students that are in 2 or 3 general ed classes, because that's important. That is the end game. But it's a very fine line of beneficial to non-beneficial for everyone involved, and so it's very much watched and taken care of. There's a lot of honestly, there's a lot of money involved, a lot of grants involved. The SPED department is probably the most well-funded, but a lot of people would seem that it's the most underfunded, just because of the way that it all ends up setting out. So yeah, integration's become it's dangerous because everybody wants integration so bad, and there's a lot of money in integration that they'll push it a little hard
On people who aren't ready.
Right, and so it does make people nervous. It does. There are teachers and parents mostly. There are a lot of kids whose parents don't want them integrated quite yet. They don't want them overwhelmed, especially freshmen in high school. They don't want them.
That's already a big change, even for someone who's not disabled.
So in the Evergreen School District, there are 3 levels of teachings. There is the DLC, which is the pretty much learning how to do human things. So go to the bathroom, wash your hands, wash yourself, learning how to do human things.
So it's like the very
basic,
disabled,
right? Or just the people that can't learn that.
Okay.
They will be in this classroom to be taken care of. And
that makes
just,
sense.
Teach them as much as possible. Then there's the life skills classroom, We do cooking. That's the classroom I'm in. We do cooking. We do math skills, money. We go on monthly outings, community outings, where we go to different stores to teach people how to pay for things.
Okay.
We give them a list of things to shop for.
It's kind of cool. So they can go find the stuff and then use either their or your money or whatever to actually,
Right. And then there is the ALC, which I don't know what it stands. It's the academic classroom, where it's people with more learning disabilities than anything else, where they need a place to go to feel comfortable. They can take a math class in there or whatever.
And learn at their own pace.
Right. It's one teacher, and it's just kind of a safe classroom almost for these kids with huge anxiety, controlled learning disabilities like dyslexia and severe ADHD. It just gives them a place to go and feel, at home at school.
And so are those classes like part of the day and part of the day integrated, or are those completely
So
separate?
DLC, so the lowest class, is very much not integrated. There's really,
that makes sense.
Yeah, right. At what point is it worth it to take them out of the classroom, make them feel a little uncomfortable by taking them to general ed? Life skills classroom, a majority of the day they're in the classroom with us, but they do different students. We have one student that goes to art first period and photography third period.
Yeah.
And we do jobs. And so that's one of the things about integration that they're doing is we have jobs that they go out and do. So we have a couple girls that go to an elementary school and do recess duty, and then they get the career person that we have pays them in donuts or treats and
so they get
right?
something
so
out of it.
Paid,
Yeah,
right?
Awesome.
We have a kid that goes down to another school and does crafts and preps crafts for kids.
Cool.
And I take kids third period to the lunchroom and we do the chairs. So we unstack all the chairs and put them around the tables. It's good motor skills.
So that kind of gets them, not really, I don't want to say work environment, but it kind of gets them into that flow of doing a job.
Doing motor skills. Repeated, doing it over and over and over again.
So the article was talking about integration and the positive effects. So we were kind of talking about it was leading to more instruction for kids with learning disabilities. They tended to have fewer absences when they were in the general education, and they were better prepared for post-secondary education.
I would be curious to see how this study was conducted, just because, in my experience, the less absences is an interesting one, because, I know we follow, all three of our SPED classes are followed pretty heavily. We know that's, I don't know, they're always in the SPED classes at least. Sometimes they'll miss art or something if we're doing something important, but I find it interesting that it said that it increases or decreases absences. I would be interested to see, I guess because SPED programs are so different, that I guess my experience, is my own and not the general experience of the U.S. I'd be curious to see how it differs in different
different programs
different
that they're
programs
using.
and stuff.
Yeah, because I'm sure everyone's implementing different ways of doing it. There's no set guidelines as of right now.
I think one of the unfortunate things is it's so run by numbers. So integration is so important right now. It's sort of like test scores back in the day, right? Test scores are so important. State test scores. Sorry,
man.
That's
That's
important. But it's not that important, right? They figured out that it doesn't really.
It's one of those things, it's all about the statistics, but in reality, is the student actually better?
Right. Are they teaching to the test, or are they teaching so that the student knows what's going on? And so, although I agree with integration, it's a curiosity of mine if these numbers are kind of
useful,
not useful and
just look nice on paper.
Look nice on paper.
Yeah, actually doing something.
Right, because a lot of things that look nice on paper, a lot of people will tell you don't work in real life. So
let me tell you.
But I think integration really is important. I think that it has just become so much of a focus that it loses importance. It loses its kind of sparkleness to it because it's so focused on.
Pushing it so
hard makes it.
It doesn't work.
It's not as appealing almost.
Yeah.
If everyone's doing it, if everyone's being integrated, it's not. At that point, it's no longer a milestone to reach. Everyone.
You're forcing it. You're forcing your hand, and you're losing
They haven't gotten to that point yet.
Right, I mean, like, so when I was in middle school, I jumped into like an honors math and I failed. And they always just told me that I was missing the puzzle pieces that were necessary to succeed. And so I think that people are skipping some of the puzzles to succeed, and they're just being pushed into this integration process and they're flailing.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if, like, maybe when that study was done, it was a very well set out study, and it was a well set out program, but then it got focused on the numbers, and now instead of building up to the integration, it is just integration because they think
you can integrate anyone,
successful.
but it doesn't actually work. I can throw anyone into a classroom.
Right, I can give
now.
anybody the WASL.
Yeah.
Test,
oh man,
right, and regardless of whether you took a certain class or not, you could get the same score.
Yeah, I remember. Oh, and the MSPs too.
MSPs. It's now the Smarter Balance.
Oh, I think I took that. I think I took like 1 year before I was done.
I'm sure you did. Yeah. So I mean, they can be blown out of proportion. I definitely agree that it's important. I think anyone could agree that integrating SPED kids is important, because
you got to do it right.
You got to do it right, and you got to have the right, just like anything, you have to have a firm foundation so you can build a nice house on top.
I like the puzzle piece analogy. If you don't have all the pieces, you're not going to make not going to finish a puzzle.
So many analogies I can make.
So one of the pieces that I was reading about was it starts at home. And this was talking about younger kids specifically, so this might not apply to high school kids necessarily. But one of the really important pieces is like just your getting out with your parents in nature, like playing. And so those are really important aspects. So I don't know if those really, like, how do you get that for a high schooler?
So
how do you force that for a high schooler?
I would agree that it's that it does start at home. I think one of the biggest struggles that we have is that kids don't listen, especially in SPED. Right? I mean, a lot of the kids we deal with are adults body wise, but I mean they are elementary school kids. Yeah. Right? And so a lot of these parents, I mean, if you have a kid, and I have not had one, but I can imagine, right, at 1 year, at that 12 months, you're like, I'm freaking done. I'm tired of the crying. You're tired, right? Even at 2 months, you're tired. And so...
You're tired from day one.
Right, to day one, you're just exhausted, right? And I can imagine going 16 years
and
of that.
Doesn't change.
And it doesn't change. And now you have a 16-year-old that you have to change the diaper on. You have to wipe, right? And you are exhausted. So they just give them what they want to be happy.
Yeah. And at a certain point, even if you're the best parent in the world, you don't have the assets
or the mental aptitude.
You just don't have what it takes to deal with that.
And so, and a lot of,
and there's nothing wrong with that.
No, I wasn't saying anything bad.
No, I know, but I mean, it takes a really special kind of person to work with little kids, and working with little kids in a giant body takes. You can't find those people everywhere.
Well, a lot of the parents don't want to admit failure, and so they're afraid to ask for help. And the state has a lot of help that they can offer, and parents just don't want to fight for it. They've already fought for their kid for 16 years. Now they have to fight even more for something that they haven't had. They're exhausted. And so we get these kids that aren't told what to do at home. They're not taught how to do things because the parents got tired, and it's not necessarily their fault, but it does make it hard for us to... Why are we supposed to listen to you and we don't even have to listen to our mom?
Yeah,
right?
There's no authority in their life.
There's no authority in their life.
What do you have that gives you the right?
The right to tell me what to do.
If my own mother doesn't, why? Yeah.
And so it can be a very big struggle with it not starting at home. And some parents just expect us to do it because they're tired. They want us to do it. And, we build relationships with these students, but there's only a certain limit that we can... Even in gen ed classes, even in kindergarten, you can only build a relationship so far before it becomes A, inappropriate, or B, you don't like the kid anymore, or the kid doesn't like you. Yeah. And it's a tough line to have to jump through.